Well, hello to the Purdue community and our friends, both on and off campus. And welcome to our Purdue Polytechnic Live Q&A conversation, where we're really going to be celebrating success among our diverse community. This is the first discussions called Tech Talks, hosted by the Purdue Polytechnic Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advocacy Focus Group, really on engagement. My name is Dr. Anthony Sparkling, and I'm an assistant professor in the Polytechnic School of Construction Management Technology. So this evening, we've got with us some of our current students and alumni from the Polytechnic who are going to join me to discuss their unique success stories while studying here at Purdue and during their careers. We're also going to discuss maybe some of those roadblocks that we've overcome in our lives, or offer advice for everyone who potentially wants to pursue majors and careers studying here in the Purdue University's Polytechnic Institute. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves in a minute. But before our discussion begins, we want you to know that you're welcome to participate in tonight's conversation. What you'll need to do is submit your questions via YouTube chat window by signing into your Google account and typing them in. My colleague, Mark Zempfer, who is also an assistant professor of practice here in the Purdue Polytechnic, and our technical director, John O'Malley, will be monitoring the chat to either answer your questions or to pass them along to us. So if we don't get to your questions tonight, please feel free to send an email to Professor Zempfer, and any one of us will respond a little bit later on. So before we get into our discussion topics for this evening, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. I'd like to start with our current students who are here with us tonight. So would you do this for me? Please tell us your name, your major, and where you're from. So first, I'm going to start with Zahra.
Awesome. Thank you, Doctor. So hi, my name is Zahra Al-Awadi. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a current sophomore studying electrical engineering technology, and I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Lindsay. Oh, you know what? I want to go to Abby next. Let's go to Abby.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lindsay. I am a current senior at Purdue Polytechnic. I am majoring in computer and information technology with a minor in organizational leadership, and I'm from Washington, D.C.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. So we're also glad to have the three of our Polytechnic graduates with us tonight. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to ask each of you to tell us your name, when you graduated, and where you are now, and maybe even a little bit about your job. So how about we do this? Let's begin with Frankie.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Sparkling. Hi, everyone. My name is Frankie Long. I graduated from the School of Technology in 2011 with a bachelor's in organizational leadership and supervision. I currently am at Nike in Portland, Oregon, where I am focused on total rewards strategy.
Well, thank you for that, Frankie. So now we'll turn to Abby.
Thanks, Dr. Sparkling. Hey, everyone. I'm Abby Perez. I graduated from Purdue Polytechnic in December 2018 with user experience design in computer graphics technology. And right now, I'm sitting in Colorado, snowing, and I work for Hewlett Packard Enterprise as a user experience designer. So I started off as an internship, and then I followed through 4 years later. I'm still here, but I'm originally from the Philippines, and I moved to Singapore, Netherlands, and then Indiana, and then now Colorado.
Wow.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for being with us tonight. And then finally, our last alumni, last but not by no means least. Good evening, Tim. The floor is yours as well. Tell us a little bit about what your name is, when you graduated, where you work now, and a little bit about some of your job aspects.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Sparkling. Yes, again, my name is Tim Stroud. I graduated from the School of Construction Management Technology this past spring. I'm currently in Houston, Texas. I work for Satterfield Pontikes Construction as a project engineer. Similar to Abby, I interned with this company all throughout my time at Purdue, and I'm now here. I love it.
Very good, very good. Well, thanks, Tim. So look, I'm really looking forward to talking with all of you tonight. We've got a variety of questions framed around success that we're going to be discussing. So here's what we're going to do. I've got about 10 questions or so. I'm going to first start by asking Zahra. So as a current student, what do you think it means to be successful in today's world, from your perspective?
In my perspective, I would consider myself to be successful once I've become financially stable and doing something that I love. Because growing up, I didn't really have that like strong backbone and foundation of like financial stability. And so I know in life, once I've reached that and once I'm doing something I actually enjoy, whether that's electrical engineering or anything else, then I'll know that like that's when I consider myself to be successful.
Thank you, thank you. So you shape that around finances. Is that one of the main focuses for you in terms of success? I say that because success is really for all of us, and by what I'll say, it's kind of like beauty. They say it's in the eye of the beholder. So success may mean one thing to me, but it means something to you. Do you have any other aspects of success that really are important to you?
Oh, absolutely. So like finance and like money is part of it, but it's more about being like comfortable in life where I'm not stressing out about like financial needs. And like I want to be able to be financially stable enough where I can go out and do things that I enjoy and have a job that like I wake up every morning enjoying rather than dreading.
Yeah.
So it's more about comfortability rather than the money.
Very good. Well, I hope you can find that here at Purdue. It makes me wonder if we're doing enough to prepare people for financial success, right? So we can give you the skills and the technical know-how for a job, but how you manage your finances could also have a factor in that. So we hope we're going to give that to you during your study here at Purdue. So Tim, I'm coming to you next. The question that I have for you is, what did you find most helpful as a student to become successful in your opinion?
Ooh, not too. I would say probably my involvement while I was at Purdue. So I was fortunate to be involved with some organizations when I started at Purdue my freshman year. I was welcomed with open arms between the faculty and even just other students, whether they were older or still in my class. There was just a general interest in getting involved in organizations, and those organizations allowed me to be able to meet more people and get more involved and really just understand the construction industry as a whole, because I'm the first person in my family to go into the industry. So I went in and didn't even know construction management actually existed prior to coming to Purdue. So being a part of those organizations, I would say, allowed me to be able to really explore and get really involved really fast, and be able to even allow me to get the internship that I got throughout my time at Purdue. And, I don't want to base my success just on the internships. Like I said, just being involved in the organizations and making sure that I was constantly busy or had something to do and kept myself oriented throughout my time at Purdue, I think helped me become successful.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim. So you mentioned a couple of things that Doc made me think. Maybe one thing you can do for us is articulate a few of those student organizations that you're referring to. I know that's what you mentioned in terms of being involved. So if you had to give some advice for some of our students, what are some of those organizations? I know you know of one of them that I'm involved in.
Right.
What are some of those other avenues for success and getting involved as a student that helped you?
Absolutely. So, yeah, right. Like the one we were both involved in was a National Association of Minority Contractors. Being kind of given that role, that president role from Binion before he graduated, was really great. And wasn't, like I said, it wasn't too much. And my involvement wasn't too much of an extent with NAMC as it was because the competition wasn't as, I guess, it wasn't as great as like an NAHB or ABC because we had the white paper competition with NAMC, but with ABC was Associated Builders and Contractors, and NAHB was National Association of Home Builders.
Mm-hmm.
So between NAHB and ABC, just the competitions, those competitions required semester long commitments, being able to understand how to develop a construction project from concept to completion.
Right.
And it just kind of exposed me to a whole lot sooner.
So a lot of hands on deck, but one of the things I think you probably are almost thinking about though is that's the networking, right? So developing a network of peers and even establishing relationships throughout the community or our industry is kind of a byproduct of being involved in some of the organizations, right?
Absolutely. No, networking is, even to this day, I still can't even attest to how powerful networking is. Like, it's the amount of people, the industry is so big, as you know, it's so big, but it's so small.
But it's small, yeah.
Connected, and that you just have no idea who all knows each other. So I've definitely learned just to treat everybody the same because you never know who does know each other. But in that same light, the organizations that you are a part of, they definitely will take you very far because I still, even being on the other side and now being a part of recruitment for a company, that's a question that I'm constantly asked by my bosses. It's like, hey, if they're involved in these organizations, like we want to give them a second look because we want somebody to come work for us who isn't just going to school, who is just doing this one thing.
That's right. Very nice. Well, thanks for sharing, Tim.
Absolutely.
Abby, so I want to come to you next. So again, thinking about success from your career perspective, was there any one in particular that helped you become successful in your career?
I'm not sure if there's a single event, but joining Hewlett Packard Enterprise, I was the first user experience person to be in the team and the only young female. So that really challenged me to, get acclimated with different kind of environment. Coming from college and then going into this type of environment, it's a different culture. And so that pushed me to learn more about the different ways of doing things within the team, but also encouraged me to show them some new stuff that I'm learning, especially that UX was new. And so it was really exciting, but really challenging at the same time. But what I found helpful was finding an ally, someone to back me up or encourage me, especially as an intern. It helps to have someone kind of echo you or just be like, yeah, or repeat what your questions are, because my voice would be softer in the beginning. I wouldn't want to speak up. And so they'd chat with me in the background being like, what do you think about this? Why don't you say that? And I'm like, okay. But having that mentor to push me really made me successful and motivates me right now. Yeah.
I love that. So you're talking about mentoring, you're talking about, engaging with others who help you and empower you to have a voice and be a part of your own success, but maybe even the success of the company. Did I even hear recently, did you do something where they interviewed you for like Tech Talk or Techies Today or something? Maybe you can share a little bit.
That's John.
Those are opportunities to celebrate your success, right?
Absolutely. Definitely embrace what you can do, even if you feel like, especially coming out of college, you're like, oh, I don't have that much experience, but you always have something to put on the table. It doesn't matter if it's quote unquote wrong because it's an idea. And if you're in an open team, that's always a good thing. And if anything, it encourages you to participate a little bit more and be more creative, especially going back and forth instead of having this like linear path or just doing what other people are telling you to do. Make it your own,
That's right. I love that. So, and I'll kind of softly share that, even our industry, and I'm in construction, but teamwork and collaboration and just creating those environments where everyone has a stake in the project. I mean, that's what owners are expecting these days. Contractors are expecting. I mean, we love it. This is the new normal, if you will. So here's what we're going to do next. Next question I have. I want to bring Lindsay into the conversation. And what I'm going to ask you, Lindsay, is how do we define success when we start talking about diversity and inclusion? Maybe you can share those, some ideas for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a disclaimer, my Wi-Fi is kind of going in and out, so if I don't hear you say my name again. But I would say in terms of diversity and inclusion for me, especially being a double minority of both gender and racial, I would say it's being in a place in my life where I'm able to help that next generation, and that's being a role model, being a mentor, being able to just be kind of a stepping stool for someone else to kind of help their career as well. And if I can give them words of encouragement, if I can be somebody that they look up to, or if I can just be somebody that just like helps them get their foot into their foot into the door at a company, that to me is kind of like what success is in terms of diversity and inclusion, because it's taking that extra step to give everybody a seat at the table, regardless of whether they may or may not fit into the stereotype of the certain roles they're going into, or the company atmosphere of the company that they're going into. It's just making sure that everybody has a voice. So I would definitely say that's what success is.
Yeah, very nice. And I see Tim nodding, but all of you really. So maybe help us understand, as whether we're faculty or staff here, what can we be doing to help you folks in the conversation around diversity and inclusion, and making you successful in that space? I mean, just some ideas to somewhat open up the floor a little bit. Tim, I saw you nodding. Do you have some ideas, or even Lindsay?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of hard because I guess I'm also still navigating, and that throughout my journey, I'm coming up on a year of working now, and it all flew by so fast. But I say all that to say that it's a constant learning curve, and I think that as far as what you guys could be doing, I guess at Purdue, is just kind of promoting, for example, going back to NAMCs I was discussing earlier, just promoting organizations like that, and understanding that you're not. There's a lot of people that don't look like me, or look like other persons of color, especially in the construction industry. It's a white male dominated industry, so it's just a matter of like Lindsay mentioned, is being a role model. Showing that and understanding that people like me can be successful, and I wouldn't even say that I'm fully successful just yet. I guess I would.
You are successful.
Kind of addressing the initial question at first was what success even looks like, but I guess to me it just personally looks like getting up and enjoying what you're doing every day, and knowing that you're in the right place at the right time. But also just being on the flip side of that, when it doesn't necessarily come to work. For me, I like to be a role model in the sense that showing people younger than me that I don't necessarily have it all figured out. So I'm trying. So if I make mistakes, or if I don't, I might do something, that may not be necessarily considered socially acceptable. I'm showing everybody I'm still human, and I'm still going to make mistakes, and that if I might be somebody that looks successful, I know that I'm still working on me every single day. So I know that was all over the place.
Well said, Tim.
Can I add something to that? Because I really like what Tim said.
Please do.
I love the embracing just learning all the time, because I'm not sure if you can ultimately be in the place and being like, oh yeah, everything is perfect, every single thing. And so just being in a space where you're like, oh yeah, I can definitely learn something right now. It may not be what I want to do, but I can take this and help me somewhere else, or this might lead me somewhere else. But success to me is learning, kind of similar to what Tim said. I like that.
Very nice. Well, thanks for circling back, Abby. Anyone else before I move on? We've got another group of questions, but I love these topics, and I think these are important stopping points to really put a placeholder and really focus in on some of these things.
Yeah,
Anything?
Dr. Sparling, do you mind if I add?
Sure.
Okay, so if I recall your question correctly, you asked like, what could the Polytech do to like enhance the diversity and inclusion of Polytech? So as much as I totally agree with like, what Tim and you were saying, I feel like a monumental step to take would be making it more of a required conversation to have rather than an optional conversation to have
Wow.
in like clubs and organizations, because a lot of people won't join those clubs or organizations, especially if they don't fit in, such as like the Minority Technology Association. Like typically you don't get, you know, your white students to come and learn more about cultures. Usually it's just a safe space for us minorities. I'm not exactly sure which class. I think it's like Tech 340 or Tech 440. They do this cultural awareness like quiz that students take. It's called like the IDI. That students take that shows them how culturally accepting or unaccepting they are. And I feel like once students have that like knowledge of where they stand in society, they start making changes based off that. Because we can act like we're one thing, but when we're told that we are a completely different thing, it like forces us to take action. So I feel like if that was something that freshmen or even seniors were required to take and like start the conversation from the beginning, that we could make some like massive improvements.
I love that. Thanks, Sarah, for sharing that. And it's really, you know, how you want to bring people into your conversation, because they may not experience the same way you experience maybe success or diversity issues or challenges and have to overcome those. It's almost like you need to put them in a space where they're in the minority instead of the majority position, so they can feel how that, you know, what that feels like, just walking into that space. So I love that. I made some notes. That's really good.
I have a suggestion too on top of that.
Yeah.
For the user experience, excuse me, for the user experience design class, one of our projects was to pair up with a student organization, and that could be an opportunity to call out different cultured student organizations, because you're not necessarily like forcing them to join something that maybe they aren't in the right mindset to absorb it. But instead, like, for example, when we did it, we had to create a website and like advertise any events or anything that organization had. And so in that way, we were learning about the organization. So that could be a potential project for some majors.
Very nice.
Dr. Sparkline, I'll just add really quickly and also try to connect a few dots, because I think everyone on this call has done an amazing job of detailing, I think, some ways to go about next steps. But when I think about what success looks like in my everyday journey, it's two things. It's about being fulfilled with what I'm doing, and it's about having an impact. And when we peel back some of the layers on the impact piece a little bit, how do I have an impact? It's about growth, and it's about challenging the status quo for me personally. When we talk about growth, this can be improving our diversity numbers. You know, there are tactics that we are probably doing right now that we will continue to do, but we really need to double down on challenging the status quo and doing things differently. I would love that if, you know, one day Purdue Polytechnic was creating these innovative white papers on diversity initiatives and inclusion initiatives. And so what are those tactics? You know, Zahra and Abby have given us two just on this call. What are those tactics that we can do that are going to look so differently that we will have the Michigans and the University of Floridas and whoever else trying to emulate Purdue, and that will be successful. So,
Yeah, see, this is a great part of this conversation. We have a question coming in from the audience. So, Abby, there's a question that's asking you, really, and it's kind of in the same spirit, but what do you have any suggestions for what we as the Polytechnic can do to help prepare our students for the challenges you face? I mean, especially in a field where maybe gender disparities are highlighted, or, you know, something that you're going to encounter once you're out there.
That's a great question. think what would have helped me is being more confident in my voice. So maybe creating more comfortable critique spaces. I know we did this a lot in the UX major, but I started my internship as I was trying to find my voice as well. But maybe if we could introduce that a little bit earlier, and being comfortable of critiques from others, but then also being able to say something back, not like rebuttal them or anything, but accepting that and being like, okay, let's collaborate, instead of feeling like you're being attacked in a sense.
Yeah.
So encouraging that culture.
So it's almost like having, little charrettes or charades where you're giving and accepting critical feedback is really what I'm hearing, right? Because we don't know how to feedback, especially when it's critical of us. We want to get defensive, but we need to know normalize that and have good conversations around it. So.
Right. And what really helped too, though, is as part of the UX program, you pair up with companies for a semester at a time for 2.5 years. And so there you interact with full-time people who have been working for, a range of years. And so you get to interact with them and get to know that relationship and how you communicate a little bit better. So I think I was more prepared, but I think it's also my personality just be a little bit more shy and things like that.
Very nice. Well, we're going to go on to the next question here. And this question is for Frankie. So Frankie, what are some of the barriers to success that you found? And then how did you overcome those in your career?
Oh yeah. So this is a tough one because there've been different barriers within my 10 years since graduating. But when I reflect a little bit, the things that really stifled my career, if you will, or my trajectory the most was when I got complacent. I did not focus on my own growth. Maybe I was focused on, delivering projects for an organization or a company, or I was focused on something in my personal life. But I wasn't really focused on me and my professional or my personal growth. And so now I've become much more intentional in two things. One is partnering with a truth teller, someone that's going to cut it to me straight, that's going to tell me, hey, Frankie, I see you being stagnant in area XYZ. And kind of get me back motivated and energized. And two, also doing a little bit of that reflection for myself. And so I've gotten pretty big on just natural meditation when I wake up in the morning, just to say, what do I need to do better than I did the day before? Where did I kind of let up? Where can I double down? And that has helped me continue to grow my career, continue to grow my relationships. Tim mentioned about networking, so on and so forth.
Nice. So Frankie, thank you for that response. And really what I wanted to highlight is it sounds like we often think we have barriers or obstacles placed in front of us, but some of those could be real barriers, right? And some of those could be perceived barriers that we just don't have to overcome on our own. I mean, so are there any barriers that you feel like you couldn't overcome on your own, or is there, things that you think you need assistance, maybe from your company or from anyone else, right? External stakeholders.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you doubled down on that part, because the first step of it is realizing and actualizing where you are in the process, but there's still, extenuating circumstances that can still be barriers. And so once you get yourself in shape, the first thing that I do is start to ask questions. And I start with the 5 why approach. Someone tells you no, well, why? And then they'll give you a little bit of that trail, and then you ask them why again, and you really get down to the root of what that barrier is. And then from there, you can start to game plan a solution. And so that's the first thing I do is I start with the whys, and then I find out who can be that sponsor, or who can be that person that may be in a higher place than I am that will help me along the way. I think it was Abby earlier, or Tim maybe, that mentioned, having people in your corner talking about mentors and sponsors. That is so vital when you come against some of those barriers, to identify those people that will help to support you and basically kick those walls down with you. So yeah, I think that those are the steps that I take to overcome those barriers. Asking why, getting really real with myself, and then identifying who those sponsors are that can help you come up with a game plan to kick those walls down.
Nice. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate what you just articulated there. And I'm wondering, I mean, maybe even Lindsay, from an African-American female perspective, have you experienced some barriers, that may or may not have challenged your ability to succeed in your career?
I would say definitely for me, one barrier that I'm still really trying to overcome is just that sense of imposter syndrome that I get, whether it's in my internships, whether it's my classes every single day, because I mean, I'll walk into a lot of my IT classes and nobody looks like me. And I especially had a lot of imposter syndrome coming into Purdue freshman year because, I mean, to be honest, my GPA was lower than the average. My ACT score was lower than the average. My SAT score was lower than the average. Came with no AP courses. I didn't really have a lot of experience. I retook calc. And so I really wanted to drop so many times. I wanted to drop out. And I think even in kind of like a lot of my internships that I've kind of had in the past, a lot of people didn't look like me either. And they fit kind of a mold that I never thought that I would go into. So a lot of times in group projects or in meetings and things, I would be questioning whether or not I can speak up, like whether I was almost kind of like allowed, in a sense, to speak up, because I wasn't sure that I had anything that was worthy, like, to say. But kind of what both Abby and Frankie were saying earlier, what really helped me was having a mentor and also an ally at the table, whether that's in a meeting or that's in a group project. Someone that can kind of say, oh, what Lindsay said earlier made sense, or this is a solid question, or just something like that. And then being able to also have a mentor that's kind of different than from an ally that I can just go and be real with and say, I'm having doubts about a certain project that I'm working on, or anything like that. How would I go about that? Who can I talk to? Things like that. So that's kind of like how I've overcome that, and that's even to this day still how I'm overcoming that as well.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing a little bit is that, it's nice to have allies. It's nice to have some validation, because, you and I and many of us, we often walk into these rooms or spaces and we are the only one. We stand out like a sore thumb. And then we have to believe that people are going to receive what we have to say with credibility, and they're not going to challenge us just because of the way we look. And I think we've all faced that. I've been called things like unicorns, and some people celebrate terms like that. But to me, I don't find that as a term that's endearing, because unicorns aren't real. So I'd like to be something that's actually real. And real is just me. Just celebrate me. I don't have to be something that's unique. I love this. And maybe Lindsay, how about this? If you had to go back, and you haven't been, you're still a student, right? What year are you again?
I'm sorry?
What year are you again?
Senior.
Senior. Well, if you had to go back and talk to that freshman, this young student coming in, what would you say to yourself, right? What advice would you have?
And to be completely honest, I would tell myself that when I was sitting in that freshman level 180 class for my major, and I thought that I didn't know anything, I want to tell myself that nobody else did either. That was the one thing that I want to tell myself, because when I came in, a lot of people were talking about all those coding languages that they knew and that they were building computers and all of this stuff. And I felt like I didn't belong. And I think the two things that I would really tell myself is, one, in kind of like that first class, to just, talk to the person that was sitting next to you. Because for me, that was how I kind of began to gain those allies in those classes. Just like reaching out and like speaking to other people, because then they kind of became my support network, and they kind of became the people that I go to in the classes that I'm even in now. Because I don't know, I always like to say that college is a team sport in some ways. You know, you have to take your exams by yourself, but you can't get through it by yourself. You need that support system in college to get through it. And then I would say probably the other thing to my freshman self is that in my mind, I thought that being successful, kind of like my freshman year, was if I proved to myself that I could do it all on my own. And I would go back and kind of tell myself that it's not a bad thing to ask for help. It's not a bad thing to go to your TAs, to go to your professors. Even just to go to see somebody that looks just like you, like a professor that may be a minority, and just sit down with them and say, hey, I'm struggling just in my personal life on this. I feel like I don't fit in. And I think that would have really helped me become a lot more successful my freshman year.
Wow. Well, Lindsay, thanks for sharing that. And we appreciate you for hanging in there. You've done an amazing job. So, be proud of yourself. You are successful already.
Thank you.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we pivot over to Zahra? And Zahra, maybe what other words of advice or comfort can you offer either current students or even some of our potential students that may be watching this chat tonight?
Yeah, okay. So something that like I tell myself every day that's like, okay, even if it seems like it's not gonna get better, it does. Like it takes baby steps to reach that like bigger picture. And sometimes you just have to step back and look at things from a third person point of view. Because kind of like Lindsay was saying, I didn't believe that like I belonged where I belonged because I couldn't do stuff by myself. I always relied on like my friends and office hours and my classmates. Like the groupies I'm in, I feel like I wouldn't have made it this far without them. But I mean, that's what they're there for, and they're people who are going to need me equally. And so when I am able to step back and look at things from that third person point of view, I'm able to understand where like my advisors, my friends, and my classmates are telling me that I'm doing a great job. Like it makes me reflect without putting myself in the middle of it. I'm always going to tell you can do better, but I don't ever tell myself like you're already doing great. You know?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to take a step back, and especially when freshmen and sophomores, like they're going to continue to get to it. So you do have to like put yourself first.
So there's some leadership topics out there that talk about living in day-tight compartments. And that's exactly what I think you're describing. And that's just focused on, today's events and just trying to take things one day at a time. And I even suggest enjoy that day, right? So make haste and make light of that day and make it a joyful experience, even if it's a difficult experience. But enjoy it. So thank you for sharing it. Why don't we do this? So we all know we're faced with this Zoom. I'd rather be doing this in person, but because of COVID, we're doing this virtually. So Abby, maybe you can start, and the others are welcome to chime in, but how has your definition of success changed in a post-COVID world?
I think it is closer to what I want, which is basically traveling to like nature and parks and things like that. But I luckily have a remote job ever since I had my internship, and so I've been really lucky that way. I didn't lose my job. Nothing really changed. So,
Nice. Anyone else want to talk about what does success look like now that we're in this post-COVID world?
I can chime in very quickly.
Sure.
I would say that success for me personally during COVID is more focused kind of like on what makes me happy instead of what looks good or what's like the flashiest or what projects am I working on that will make people go wow. It's almost kind of like what what do I like doing more so than anything else? And that was something that I really focused on a lot when I was looking at jobs. I was applying to a lot of full-time positions, and especially a lot of like the large tech companies, you know, being like an IT major, and some of like the offers that I got were from tech companies that were known to be strenuous, known to be kind of extreme companies, and I kind of had to like sit down and kind of do the pros and cons and realize that it's not worth it for me personally, because it's not something that I'm going to be happy with. It sounds great, and everybody goes, wow, but like at the end of the day, you know, like I'm not happy about it, and I'll be sitting mostly I'll be sitting remotely, you know, just like not just happy with the work that I would be doing, not happy with kind of the pressure that would be on my shoulders, especially in a time where kind of like a lot of people's mental health is so fragile. And so I kind of had to reevaluate that a little bit. So what used to be success to me is now kind of, it's not as important anymore.
My gosh. Very good. I love that idea, and that, you know, that happiness is really what we should be thinking about in terms of career success, because, you know, we could be in a career for 20, 30 years, and if you're not doing something that you're happy with, that will be a miserable life, I guess you have to suggest, right? Because, you know, you want to wake up every morning doing something you love to do. Frankie, did you have any thoughts about success? Has it changed for you at all, you know, working at Nike in this COVID world we're living in?
Yeah, I think for me, you know, going back to kind of the way I outlined it earlier, being that success is when I'm fulfilled and when I have an impact. And I actually didn't realize that until COVID. You know, so much had gone on up until that point that I wasn't prioritizing myself at that time. And so, to Lindsay's point, it became glaring that, you know, not being able to see my family, celebrating my mom's 60th birthday over Zoom, and things of that nature. Like, I had to stop pouring so much into these 6 a.m. calls and more into my family. We actually welcomed our second daughter during COVID, so it was really interesting to, you know, be in the hospital with the mask, and my wife doing the he-he-hoos while taking a COVID test. But, you know, it just went to show me that family is everything for me. And if, you know, I get furloughed or if I get laid off, what will I have to show for it? It will be my family, it will be my friends. And so that put a big, you know, just glaring spotlight on the things that were important for me, which I'm really appreciative of. From a business standpoint, you know, one thing that I know we're talking about on this call is diversity. And there has been a lot that has gone on since COVID when we talk about putting a spotlight on things. And these organizations are, you know, really chomping at the bit for diverse talent. But I stress to everyone that is listening to this panel to make sure that you continue to not just be a check on the box. You just are not a number. You know, Lindsay highlighted something that I want to just stress on, which is doing the due diligence and understanding what's right for you. It is so important in this time and moving forward. I mean, just make sure that as you're going through those jobs, as you're applying, as you're getting internships and looking for internships, that you're just as focused on what's going to make you happy as you are, you know, celebrating that offer that you might get.
Well
I
said.
wanted to add something too.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I would also encourage folks as they're interviewing for jobs to ask about what they're doing with COVID and how the culture has changed. And I think I got lucky that I started a job that was already remote, so they had a remote culture, but looking out for things like being able to attend to things at your house because you're home, you're distracted, pets, you're hungry, you know, you need to make time to eat. You're not supposed to be in your desk 8 hours all the time. Like I think because of COVID, the culture is changing that way. And so being able to be flexible in that way and still taking care of yourself and not being so consumed by work and finding that balance with work and life is really, really important. So it's good to look for companies that would support that.
Nice. So I think we've all learned that, I mean, there's some, I guess, a little bit of a silver lining in this COVID situation, that we've learned, you know, to prioritize things better. We've learned that remote work is probably okay in certain situations. But then what you guys just recently highlighted is that we really just need to make sure we find the right fit within the organization. Well, I think we've got about 15 minutes or less left. And I want to make sure we give time to the audience to get over to another Zoom about the Gateway Project. So what I'll do is I've got one last question that I'd like to ask, but I'll open it up to everyone. And I'll start with Lindsay, but here's what the question is, and everybody think about this. Was there a pivotal moment in your life that changed your trajectory that has led you to where you are now? So Frank or Lindsay first. One pivotal moment. Or was there a pivotal moment?
I would say, personally, for me, a pivotal moment was actually during the summer between my sophomore year and my junior year. I was interning for Bank of America, and I was a cybersecurity intern with them because that was previously my major. I was a cybersecurity major for about 2.5 years, and I realized, kind of like as I was sitting down, I was collaborating with a lot of the other interns, that the work that I was doing I didn't like, but I was staying in that major because it was like something that looked good, and it was something that sounded good, and it was something that was kind of unique, and it was niche. And I remember one time I was sitting in a meeting with all of the other interns, and they were talking about all of these like passion projects that they were working on that were related to security. And I realized that I didn't really have any passion projects because it wasn't something that I like to do. And I think following that, I came back to Purdue. I was still a cybersecurity major for another semester. And I walked over to my professor and I said, I really don't want to be a cybersecurity major anymore, but can you give me some words of advice to help me stay in this major? And he was like, well, what do you want to do after college? And I told him that I wanted to be a PM. I told him I wanted to be a program manager. And he said, so why are you here? and I think it was kind of after that I kind of realized that the only reason why I was really staying in that major was just kind of out of it was just because of like the headspace that I had like been in the headspace that I thought that I needed to be in. I thought that for me, cybersecurity, I thought that was what was successful to me in my mind. And it was kind of like that summer that really kind of changed. It really kind of changed my mind about it. So then I switched over to IT, and I have a lot more flexibility. I'm able to take those medicine classes, PM classes, and things like that, and study for PM certificates and things. So yeah, that was my kind of defining moment in my college career.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing, Lindsay. Why don't we switch to, how about Tim? Tim, do you have a pivotal moment that you've experienced in your life that really maybe have changed your trajectory?
Absolutely. I'll try and keep this short because I've been through a lot, but I'm kind of like it's like a two-part answer. But first, I would say the first pivotal moment would probably be, just to be transparent, probably after my mom's divorce about 10 years ago. It was kind of rough on us, because I have a small family. So with that being said, it kind of forced me to be a little bit more motivated. I got my first job when I was 16. I worked at a JCPenney's, and pretty much since then, from that point when I was 16 all the way through my time at Purdue, I always had a job. I was used to just kind of working, kind of supporting myself, or kind of helping my family out where it needed to be. So I've always just had that motivation ever since then, because I knew that I knew that family was everything, and it kind of made me, it reinforced that after the divorce, and kind of helped me understand that, we have each other. We got to make sure that we can take care of each other. So that leads me to the second pivotal moment. When I got to Purdue, I would say was probably the summer after my freshman year, after my first internship. I was honestly, my freshman year was really rough, and I had a lot of, I had a lot of things I had to figure out my freshman year financially, and trying to figure out, I was 15 hours away from home, first time going out of state really. So it was a whole lot I was trying to figure out at the time. And I was applying for internships pretty steadily throughout my freshman year, and didn't hear back from anybody that I wanted to. And I heard from my company probably like the very last minute. I want to say it was February or March, my spring semester, and right before spring break. And but the pivotal moment itself came when I was at the internship, and I got to see demolition. They were demoing a building. So they took a giant wrecking ball and kind of just, it was really animated, but it was really animated. But I knew right then and there that I had found the right major, which was really important to me because I came to Purdue with the intent of studying civil engineering. Because again, I didn't know Purdue, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't know Purdue was even a school that existed. Being from Texas originally, it's not a very common school, just because most people tend to stick around this region to go to school. So when I was looking for schools, it wasn't something that really, it wasn't a school that was a possibility for me. And so when I was looking for schools for civil engineering, that's how I found Purdue. And when I stumbled upon construction management, I was nervous about that being the right major for me. So after being in that internship and getting to see that, firsthand, and getting to see the demolition and working with a great team, it just really reaffirmed that I made the right decision, because it really, at the end of the day, it was a leap of faith for me coming up to Purdue, not knowing if I made the right decision. So
Very nice. So you found that passion and that calling through that pivotal space or pivotal moment. Why don't we've got about, less than 9 minutes or so. Why don't we go, I'm going to at least give Zahra a chance, and then I'd like to go to Abby and then perhaps Frankie if time permits. Zahra, do you have a story you'd like to share, a moment that you'd like to share that was very pivotal for you?
Absolutely. So mine more focuses around my mental health. So when I was about 14 or 15, I was diagnosed with depression. And so that was something I dealt with up. And it was one point in my life where I was like, I have nothing going for me. I don't want to do anything. I don't think I should, because I was in honors and PhD classes and all that. And I was like, I don't think this is for me. I don't want to continue to do this. I don't think I'm smart enough to be wherever I'm at. And the depression really dragged me down, where I wasn't getting any work done. I wasn't communicating like I should have. I wasn't networking. And then I had this advisor that told me that if I feel like I'm at my worst now, that it's not going to get any worse, that it can only get better. And so I took that advice to heart, and she really pushed me and helped me keep going. And kind of when I was applying for colleges, I wanted to go big or go home type of thing, or the best universities, Harvard and Purdue and Rose-Hulman. But then after I didn't visit Harvard, but after learning about their environment, learning about the environment over at Rose-Hulman, I just didn't feel at home. I didn't feel myself, and I didn't feel safe. And so after visiting Purdue a couple times and talking to Kathy Pullings, one of the advisors, the Polytechnic, I just fell in love with the place. And so that's what got me. It was a rough journey coming up, but it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. I take those words to heart.
Well, thanks for sharing, Zahra. So I'll tell you, Purdue is big, just so you're aware, and we're glad you're here. So you made a great decision. So we're proud of you. Why don't we move to Abby, and then we'll try to close with Frankie. We probably have less than 6 minutes. So you guys will have to go pretty quick. Abby, maybe real quick if you have a pivotal moment.
I'll be quick. So the thing that stuck out when you asked that question was actually moving to America from the Netherlands. So when I moved out of the Philippines, I was in international schools. And so I didn't realize going into those schools that everyone already has a mindset of, oh, everybody's coming from different cultures. We celebrate different cultures and have different, events and things like that. And then I moved to a public school in Indiana and everything changed. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot more challenging than I thought. People were making fun of me for speaking proper English that I've lost now because I've lived in America for a handful of years. But just embracing that everyone has different paths. Everyone has one goal, just different paths to get there, and that's okay. There is no right, there's no wrong. It's just a different way of getting there, and it's like really fun and interesting to learn about those different paths. But it's important not to interrupt that, because everyone has their own paths of learning and discovery, and whatever happens is happening for a reason to everybody. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I'm sure we can read more about it in your podcast there with Techies Today, but I'd like to give Frankie, if you want to take 1 or 2 minutes, and then I'm going to wrap things up here.
Sounds good. Yeah. My most pivotal moment actually came at Purdue. It's a little bit of a failure story. I'll keep it short, but I had actually ended up at Purdue to play basketball, and it didn't work out. And so I was 6 hours away from home with no friends and no car as a freshman. And I was ready to leave. And I couldn't leave. My mom wouldn't let me. And so I ended up switching my major. I originally started in the School of Cranert, switched my major to OLS, met Tony Munguia, who literally changed my life. And the rest is history. I've been able to travel the world, work in Poland, and do a bunch of phenomenal things that I could have never imagined, all because I thought I was going to be the next LeBron James. So I can't sing Purdue's praises enough for just keeping me whole and keeping me sane and having the career that I have.
Well, thank you, Frank. Thanks, Frankie, for sharing that. I guess we all know that life is a journey, and it's not really what we're doing and how we're doing it. It's where we end up. So it sounds like we have some amazing experiences to continue to share. So this has been a great discussion, and it's really part of an ongoing conversation that we'd like to continue to have. And I picked up some good notes from the panel today. So I thank all of you for sharing with us. So I'll give you a quick round of applause. But what I'd like to do now to wrap things up and to close things with our audience is I want to remind you to tune in to the online town hall discussion that's going to be happening to talk about the new engineering and Polytechnic Gateway Complex. That's going to start this evening at 8 o'clock, so in a few minutes. So I want you to get over to that other Zoom and listen in to the Polytechnic Student Council, some of the senators from the student government, and also hear from other industry folks or one of our leaders in our college who's going to be really talking about this new facility. So again, I thank you to our viewers for joining us. This has been a great session with some amazing panelists here to share their insights and their experiences. And I'd like to thank Mark Zimfer, who was working behind the scenes, who was helping to facilitate the conversations, the chat room, John, our technical director. And really, I'd just like to thank all of you for being here this evening. So this video can be watched later on if anybody dares to take a peek back at it and see what we've discussed. So for all of you, I'd like to say thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your night. Boiler up. That's it.